UFC 280 betting and DraftKings show. We have 13 fights this Saturday. I'm Jon Kelly. Let's hear the picks. Kicking things off, we have Karol Rosa coming in as a sizable favorite at -315. The comeback on Lena Landsberg is +260. And this one, I gotta be honest, there's a lot of really good fights up and down the card. This first one is not really one of them. I mean, on one hand, you have a solid prospect in Karol Rosa looking to rebound off a loss against Sarah McMahon her last time out, and you're setting her up against a 40-year-old Lena Landsberg who's 10-6 professionally. I just don't really understand the matchmaking here. I think Karol Rosa is going to out-volume her. She averages over 6.5 significant strikes per minute. That's one of the top in this division. I don't think Landsberg has the volume. Historically, she's been a pretty low output fighter, and the way to beat Karol Rosa is to take her down and take advantage of her defensive grappling. That's just not something that Lena Landsberg is capable of doing. So I like Karol Rosa here. Rosa by decision is the official pick, but there's just better fights to target on DraftKings. And up next in the flyweight division, we have Muhammad Mokaev, a -1200 favorite. The comeback on Malcolm Gordon is +725. He's the biggest favorite on the card, and for good reason. He should have multiple advantages here against Malcolm Gordon, who's been knocked out multiple times in his career. We've seen him submitted by Amir Albazi a couple fights back, and I just think Mokaev's going to have a clear grappling advantage despite Malcolm Gordon being a black belt. I expect Mokaev to go to the grappling early and find a finish here. So Mokaev inside the distance, that's the official pick, and he's a solid target on DraftKings, but I think there's a couple other fighters in that range that we're going to need to target as well. Up next in the middleweight division, Armen Petrosyan comes in as a -205 favorite. The comeback on AJ Dobson is +175, and this one is a banger. I'm expecting fireworks from the very beginning. Armen Petrosyan comes from a high-level kickboxing background. He's a former Dana White Contender Series prospect fighting AJ Dobson, who also fought on Dana White Contender Series. Dobson's more of a round one or bust style of fighter, but that doesn't mean he can't have round one finishing upside in this spot. I expect both of these guys to bring it. I'm expecting one of them to go to sleep in the first round. I side with Petrosyan just because I think he's got more volume over 15 minutes, better cardio, better durability as well. He's more proven, so I think he's probably the spot here. So I'm going to lean towards Petrosyan, but I'm actually going to have exposure to both sides on DraftKings because I do think the winner scores well. And next up, we have Abubakar Nurmagomedov coming in as a -175 favorite. The comeback on Gadzi Armagdziov is +150, and this is an interesting matchup because on one hand, Nurmagomedov, I think I would agree he's the more skilled fighter. The problem is I think this guy is completely untrustworthy. He made his UFC debut back in 2019, formerly fought over in PFL, debuted against David Zawada, got submitted in the first round. He doesn't fight that often either, so he's coming off a decent sized layoff as well. And against a guy like Armagdziov, I think this is a buy low spot on him because he was basically exposed in the grappling because he fought a tough opponent in Kai Bohayo, who we'll talk about, who fights later on this card. He basically had him backpack for a full 2 rounds, but I think Armagdziov does have upside in this spot. 11 of his 13 wins have come inside the distance, whereas Nurmagomedov, all 3 of his losses professionally have come inside the distance. I think he's untrustworthy. I think even though he's more skilled, he doesn't put a ton of volume out there. He'll mix in the takedowns, but he doesn't necessarily stay sound in terms of the grappling. I just side with the dog here. I think he has more finishing upside on DraftKings, so that's how I'm going to play it. I'm just going to lean more exposure to Armagdziov. And next up, we have Zubaira Tukhugov, comes in as a -155 favorite. The comeback on Lucas Almeida is +135, and this is another underdog that I like here. Lucas Almeida, we cashed big on him against Michael Trezano, got that 3rd round finish, and this is another spot where I think there's clear value in the finish-only market on Lucas Almeida. This guy is a kill or be killed style of fighter. We know he's going to bring it. He's a high volume striker, does have power, has good enough cardio to carry that power for 15 minutes. And I think that's key here against Tukhugov, who we know is notorious for slowing down later in fights. He comes out pretty solid early, decent control grappler, but he's going to fade as the fight goes on, and that's a nightmare against Lucas Almeida, who's gonna be there for a full 15 minutes. I expect Almeida to win round 3 at a very high clip, so he's really just got to take one of the first 2 rounds here. I think he has more finishing potential as well, so even though I like him at the money line, I really like him in the finish only markets as well, because on a decision your bet gets voided. So I think it's just a little bit safer way to play it, and the numbers just about the same depending on where you shop around. But I like Lucas Almeida to get a finish, and so I'm naturally going to have more exposure to him on DraftKings as well. Up next in the light heavyweight division, Nikita Krylov comes in as a -170 favorite with Volkan Ozdemir on the comeback at +150. And this is another one of those matchups where I think either guy has some finishing potential, but I do side with Nikita Krylov here. I think he's kind of coming into his own. He's looked pretty solid over his last few fights. I think he's probably the higher volume striker here. I think he's a little bit more powerful on the feet. Not that Ozdemir isn't powerful himself, but I also think Krylov just has more ways to win when you factor in the grappling upside. If he's able to get this fight to the ground, I do think he's the better submission grappler here. And we've seen Ozdemir not just get exposed in the grappling, but the chin as well. He's been knocked out 2 times now. We don't really know how that durability is going to hold up. So I think Krylov has more ways to win, more paths to victory, and I trust his durability a little bit more as well. So give me Krylov by TKO. That's the official pick. And up next, we have my guy Kai Bohayo coming in as a -195 favorite. The comeback on Makhmud Muradov is +165. And I got to say, I like the Bohayo side here. The kid's just very talented. I've been saying that prior to his fight on Contender Series, the first one. He looked great in that fight, didn't get the contract. They brought him back to get the round 1 finish and then signed him, and he's looked great in the UFC so far. It's not just the high fight IQ. He fights very smart, stays at range, doesn't take too many chances on the feet, has some powerful body kicks, technical kickboxer, but when he goes to the grappling, that's where you see where his true talents lie. He's trained with Damian Maia for years on the mats, and it's certainly shown over the course of his last couple of fights here, and I expect him to have a significant grappling advantage against Makhmud Muradov here. Muradov's an exciting fighter. 17 of his 25 wins have come by knockout. He's a very powerful striker, but we've seen, even as recent as this last fight against Gerald Meerschaert, where he almost got the finish in round 1, he didn't. He gassed out, and as soon as he had to defensively grapple, Meerschaert just took his back, sunk in the choke, and submitted him. This guy's been submitted 4 times in his career. I think Bohayo by submission props in the +500 range look pretty good to me, and I actually think Bohayo less than -200 is a solid parlay piece this week, because I just think the grappling edge is very, very big here, and I don't think the striking is much of a blowout either. So give me Kai Bohayo. Bohayo by submission is the official pick. Up next, we got my guy Sean Brady as a small -140 favorite. The comeback on Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, is +120. A lot of chatter between these two in the press conference leading up to this week. Muhammad's talking smack about Philadelphia. That's not a smart thing to do, because you know the Northeast PA folks are going to bring it this Saturday night. Sean Brady's going to represent for Pennsylvania and put on a show. I like Sean Brady here in all seriousness. I just think Bilal Muhammad, while he's had a good run, I think a lot of it is favorable matchmaking, but also we have not seen him face a legitimate grappling threat outside of a washed up version of Damian Maia, and Bilal Muhammad can defend single legs all day. I expect Sean Brady to close distance here, get this fight to the mat. I expect him to have a clear grappling advantage on the mat. I think he can control Muhammad down there, especially while he's fresh. I think he could bank the first 2 rounds. And I don't even think the striking really favors Muhammad either. I don't rate his striking super highly. Not that Brady's some spectacular striker, but he does have a solid jab. I think he has a little bit more power than Muhammad as well. I just think the striking is going to be competitive, and Brady has all of the grappling upside. So give me Sean Brady here. I bet him at -146 to win a unit earlier this week, and I'm confident he gets it done this week. And as always, guys, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. I do videos like this every week, and I appreciate any and all support. Kicking off the main card, Manon Fiorot comes in as a -200 favorite. The comeback on Caitlin Chukagian is +170, and I favor the Fiorot side here. I just think Caitlin Chukagian, she's a very high IQ fighter, but I do think she could be exposed in terms of when she fights people that are more powerful than her, I think it's very evident. I think Fiorot's going to have a clear power advantage. I don't think Chookagian is going to want to exchange with her in the clinch, in the phone booth. I think Fiorot has some very powerful elbows in the clinch that I don't think Chookagian wants any part of. Fiorot also has takedown upside. Chookagian only defends at 54% in the UFC. It's not going to take much to get her down, and I think Fiorot, if she's able to close distance, is probably going to, do her judo hip throws once or twice in this. And if the striking is close, and I think it will be, then those takedowns and any control time and any big, powerful, impactful shots, I think are going to be able to swing rounds in favor of Fiorot. So we're going Fiorot by decision. That's the official pick, but I just favor other fights on DraftKings this week. Up next, Mateusz Gamrot comes in as a -195 favorite. The comeback on Beneil Dariush is +165, and I think there's clear value on the underdog in Beneil Dariush here for a couple reasons. For starters, I just think Gamrot's being overvalued by the market, coming off a win over Arman Tsarukyan, which is a fight that a lot of people thought Tsarukyan may have edged on the scorecards. But regardless, I just think this is a buy high spot on him against probably the toughest competition that he's yet to face in Beneil Dariush, who's very dangerous on the feet. He's very powerful with his knees, his elbows, his punches. He swings very hard trying to get you out of there early. And he's also a dangerous submission grappler with 8 career submission wins. I expect Gamrot to be probably the better pure wrestler of the two and maybe land a couple takedowns, but I expect Dariush to be able to have success in the grappling realm as well. I expect Dariush to be the more aggressive fighter in bringing it to Gamrot. And even though there's concerns with Dariush's durability, he's been finished in all 4 of his professional losses. I have concerns with Gamrot's durability as well. He's been knocked down multiple times. I'm not sure if he's got a great chin either. So I'm just going to take the more aggressive fighter who naturally brings variance into his fights because of his fighting style. I have this fight line closer to a pick'em, so I'm going to take the dog shot in +160 range on Beneil Dariush and hope he gets it done for us. And up next, it's the Sugar Show, or is it? As Peter Yan comes in as a -265 favorite with Sean O'Malley on the comeback at +225. And I got to say, I think Yan is the rightful favorite here. I think he could have a lot of success kicking the legs of Sean O'Malley, something that he struggled with historically in the past. And I think O'Malley, while he is a very technical kickboxer, a flashy striker, has a lot of tools that he can do in round 1. I think Yan is the more well-rounded of the two. Very solid defensively. I think he's going to build as the fight goes on. He's got a lot of tools himself that I think could give O'Malley fits. I'd give him the cardio edge significantly as well. So I expect him to win rounds 2 and round 3, maybe even round 1 as well. But I think round 1 is probably O'Malley's only shot in this one. But give me Yan. Yan by decision is the official pick. A finish would not surprise me, especially if O'Malley tends to wilt a little bit in the later rounds, especially if Yan keeps his foot on the gas pedal. So either way, I think Yan gets his hand raised here. He's an okay play on DraftKings, but we have 2 5-round fights that we'll get to next and a lot of other fights that I think end in a finish. So he's not necessarily a priority, even though it is a high-profile fight. And here's the first of 2 title fights as Aljamain Sterling comes in as a -175 favorite. The comeback on the former champion TJ Dillashaw is +150, and I expect this to be a competitive fight. I think Aljamain Sterling has the potential to throw more volume than TJ Dillashaw. I expect the striking to be competitive. Aljamain Sterling does have a couple inches of reach advantage. I'd expect him to have the advantage while the fight plays out at range. It's going to be up to Dillashaw to close distance, make it dirty, initiate the wrestling and the grappling. And that's where it gets interesting because Aljamain Sterling is very big for the division. He's very physically strong. We haven't really seen TJ Dillashaw have to rely so much on his wrestling in quite some time. Yes, he was able to mix it in his comeback fight against Corey Sandhagen. He was able to hold him up against the fence. Those are things that I'm not sure he's going to be able to do against Aljamain Sterling. Sterling's a very strong grappler. I think he's the better submission grappler of the two as well. And I think the durability, you just have to side with Aljamain Sterling. TJ Dillashaw's 37 years old. We know the wear and tear on his body. Not only has he been finished multiple times, but he's had a number of injuries, even recently coming off the steroid suspension. He's had knee surgery after the Corey Sandhagen fight. So I just think the age of Dillashaw, the durability of Dillashaw is a concern. I think the skill set is still there, but I'm not sure if the body is. So I'm going with the favorite in Aljamain Sterling. I think he gets his hand raised. Which brings us to the main event as Islam Makhachev comes in as a -190 favorite with Charles Oliveira on the comeback at +160. This is the long anticipated matchup between Makhachev and Oliveira, two excellent grapplers. A lot of people have been touting Makhachev as the next future champion for years, it seems, and finally he's getting that push. But one thing that's clear to me is the level of competition. Yes, he has racked up a couple notable wins recently over Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, but this is a massive step up for him against Charles Oliveira, who's clearly cemented himself atop of the division. He is dangerous wherever the fight goes. I expect him to have a clear advantage in the striking department. Let's not forget, Makhachev, while he doesn't even have much output offensively while the fight plays out at range, he's also a liability defensively. This guy does not play good defense. We've seen him knocked out really badly on the regional scene. I don't think his durability is really all there. And Oliveira, you know, people used to talk about his durability, the perseverance. We've seen him prove that narrative to be false. We've seen him fight through adversity and come back from the depths of hell to end up winning the fight. And I think he's just got more ways to win here because not only does he have the striking advantage, I expect Makhachev to go to the wrestling to take Oliveira down multiple times here. Is he going to be able to control Oliveira for extended minutes and stay out of trouble? That's the key question in this fight. And I think at this price of -190, you're just going to have to prove it to me. I'm backing the champ here at +160. I think it's a no-brainer value spot on Oliveira here. I think he has more ways to win, and Makhachev's just going to have to prove it to me at this price. And as always, guys, you could check out fightnumbers.com where I'll have ownership projections for DraftKings. I'll have DraftKings player ranking broken down by salary tier, fantasy points per minute, MMA line movement, all that stuff. It's completely free, fightnumbers.com. I appreciate it, guys. Best of luck, and we'll see you guys next time.